I just wanted to add in a little bit of a review from day 2 in case you haven't watched the video yet. I'll leave the link to it in the description of this video. But it would be good just to kind of see what we left off on the prior day. On the 3rd day, I trailered her over to another venue, which I left that little blurb in case you want to read it, just to have another trainer watch what I was doing with her and have them kind of confirm what I was feeling. Sorry the video is kind of washed out and faded at some points. I was recording most of it on the front-facing camera of my iPhone. I didn't record the start of this day only because it was pretty much just getting her like on the trailer and then over here, and then I kind of moved her around just a little bit in the pen, and I picked up kind of where I left off on day 1, which was petting her neck. You can see here how she moves her head around a lot and she's very nervous, so I wait with my hand until she kind of settles and then I touch her. What I figured out worked best for her was I can only be in one eye at a time. If I'm in 2, then that's when she'll start challenging me, and I have to be in probably one of the worst positions possible, which is like almost directly in front of her, and she has to be up against a fence line. You know, horses have 4 doors. There's the left side, the right side, the back, and forwards, and I mean they could go up too, but I'm pretty much blocking off 2 sides and the gate's blocking off another, so the only way she could go was backwards, which isn't ideal, but for her that's what works. You saw day 3 was pretty simple. All I did was working on petting her cheek, which was new, and then going back to her neck. So day 4 I picked up at the same spot, and then I decided to pull a tarp into the pen just to kind of change it up, to get her mind and my mind on something else, just an obstacle, and she handled it very well. She went up and sniffed it, wasn't too worried about it. I even threw some sand on it and she didn't really react. So here I just added a little bit pressure to kind of encourage her to sniff it or look at it or even step forward, and then I released as soon as she put her nose down to sniff it. So now I let her hang out there for a while. I go back up and again encourage her to go forward. As soon as she takes a step, you can see that I back off. And she's being pretty brave. I'm pretty sure she has both front feet on the tarp right now. And she licked and chewed up there, so I just kind of let her hang out. And that was a great reaction. Sometimes they'll kind of jump when they get their hind feet on it afterwards, and she walked calmly pretty much over the whole thing, and then she yielded her hindquarters at the end. Another good reaction. A lot of these Mustangs like to paw at the tarps the first time, and sometimes it spooks them too much, but she handled herself pretty well in that. You can kind of tell from this, she isn't super fearful of much. Again, I let her sniff it, and then ask her to go over it again. And that's pretty much all I did with the tarp for that day. The reason I sent her right then was because she did try to challenge me, and I am standing near the tarp because I don't want to use the tarp as punishment, sending her around and back over it and making her repetitively do it. So what I did instead was I sent her, got her in the direction I wanted her to be in, and then just rubbed her with the stick and released from there. Because her issue is me, not the tarp. Again, I didn't really like those steps forward there, but I try to ignore things like that to the best of my ability. And she didn't advance after that, so I was okay with it. So you can tell now on day 4 I've been able to touch her cheek on both sides and her neck. And what I do to kind of continue with this is inch my hand up the stick as I go. So now you saw that I rubbed right between her eyes this time, and I'm kind of playing with the halter with the stick, getting her ready for my hand to be touching her halter and moving it around. Some Mustangs have a funny reaction the first time you start moving their halter around. If she had a good reaction to what I just did, then she gets a longer release. You can still tell from her body language she definitely isn't happy about the situation, but she is tolerating it, and she's being really good about me messing with that halter. And this time you can see I probably moved my hand down the stick about 1 more inch, because the goal is to be touching her with my hands, because I do have to put the lead rope on. So now I have the lead rope, and I'm going to desensitize her to this. Rub it around her neck, on her face. Eventually I'll start opening and closing the snap near her. With new objects, I like to bring them up to the horse. If they'll sniff them, I'll put it near their nose for them to sniff. This horse will not sniff things, so I don't even bother. And then I rub them with it on their neck and retreat, and then rub them with it on their neck and retreat, and then start going into the area that I want to get the object near, which in this case will be her face. You can see that I do it a lot with this lead rope. I was a little bit hesitant to clip it on just because I didn't know how she was going to react with my hands so close to her face. So I'm rubbing it a lot on her cheek, and that's the first time I believe I touched in between her eyes. Came pretty close to clipping it on, but I don't like to do things as quick as possible. You'll see that with a couple different clips in later days. Even if I am able to do it, like I would have been able to snap the lead rope on right then, I'll still do a couple more times of prep. So I got it on that time, I backed up, she saw the rope and she moved, and I was fine with that. I did not hold on because I want her to get used to the rope dragging and being there first without me attached to the other side of it. I'll just start with some changes of directions. Not too worried about objects dragging, which is nice. You can see her get nervous about the stick again, touching her. But I use the stick to help me pick up the rope because I don't want to bend down near her. You can see her get a little bit worried right there. I increased the intensity because she changed directions without me asking, so I got her sent back in the way she was going. Good girl. That was a good reaction to stepping on the rope and having that pressure pulling down on her halter. And for this Mustang, she handled learning leading and giving to the rope and pressure very well. So this is my first time actually holding the rope. This clip is kind of hard because you can't see her half the time, just because the place my phone was set up wasn't the best to capture the whole area. So at first I'm just getting her used to slack in the rope with me holding it. You can see I'm trying to stay as far to the end as I can, that way she can have slack and doesn't feel any pressure from the rope. She wanted to turn away right there, so I just corrected her. Again, I still haven't applied pressure to the lead rope yet. And the first thing I do with these guys is I don't ask them to lead straight forward. So now I have a little bit of pressure. I don't ask them to lead straight forward. It's easier to ask them to turn their head or yield their hindquarters or anything like that. So right there I was able to get her to turn her head in while also using the body language she already knew, which was changing directions. So I added some pressure, then stepped to the other side and asked her to change directions, and that helped her give in. So this is the first time that I actually hold and kind of wait for her to give into it. Again, I find this is a lot easier to teach on a circle like this and with them moving forward rather than asking them from a standstill and just trying to pull them forward at you. So I'm not going to release until I get some form of release from her. It can be as simple as her just turning her head and looking at me too, as long as she doesn't have resistance trying to straighten her head back out. Of course, it was off camera, but you can hear her breathing afterwards when I was able to release, because she turned her head into me, and I think she actually might have taken a step too. So add the pressure,
Good
turns
girl.
her head, and I completely release.
Good girl.
So this is the first time I've touched her out, not against the fence line. And she did pretty well.